Hey folks, Jackdaw here. So Fable might be delayed again. Emphasis on the word might. Not just out of 2025, we already knew about that one, but possibly out of 2026 too. According to Nick Baker, the co-founder of podcast XboxEra, two sources, one of them outside Microsoft, have said that this reboot may not launch until 2027. Nick isn't saying it's doomed, it's just taking longer than expected. Now before we continue, a quick, mightily needed disclaimer. Nick has quite the reputation, and let's just say he's not the most consistent insider in the world. Now, in his time, he has shared a lot of incorrect leaks, and he likes to joke about that on social media. His general tone is, yeah, I've been wrong in the past, but trust me this time. So perhaps a grain of salt? No, possibly a handful of salt for this one. But still, the rumours of Fable's delay are out there, and they've certainly been causing quite a scene. And if you actually have been following the project, you've got a vested interest in its development, it's not too hard to believe that this game might be delayed for another year. You know, 2025 was the original plan. Then Craig Duncan said 2026. It skipped the Xbox 2025 showcase entirely for what we assumed would be a 2026 release window. There's still, of course, the Game Awards later this year for that to pop up, but still, one of the most alarming things in the community has been the fact that Playground is still hiring lead gameplay roles now in year 7 of development. So even if this 2027 rumour is completely wrong, the underlying concern around it isn't. And as mentioned in my previous development video, but Playground Games started with absolutely nothing, which became this game's biggest challenge. No RPG framework, no pipeline, no leftover Lionhead code, no narrative plan, just the name. Fable, the Forza Tech engine, and the pressure to make Fable mean something again in whatever year this comes out in. And honestly, I say all of this as somebody who genuinely wants Playground to succeed. But I think if this delay is true, it's not about Playground and it's not about Fable anymore. It's all about Xbox, a platform that told us a new golden age of first-party titles was coming. And instead, all we've seen is studios closed down, games cancelled, Perfect Dark purged, Everwild MIA, ZeniMax's new MMO gone before it was even announced. And this year alone, over 2,000 developers across the Xbox studios laid off. And here's Fable, still not here, still not dated, still not done. To me, this reboot has become so much bigger than revitalising one of the most quintessentially British fantasy RPGs. It's now a test case. A public one too, to see whether Xbox can actually deliver the kind of flagship, generational defying titles they once built their entire identity upon. And if it does in fact slip into that 2027 release window, that is just another missed milestone in a generation that already feels like it's drifting. No pun intended. Playground Games took the reins back in 2018, but all they were given was the simple idea of create a Fable game. The simple concept of Fable alone. No engine, no systems, no team that had ever shipped a role-playing game before. So of course, they built it from the ground up. This as much as we know, they brought in talent from Remedy, Guerrilla Games, and of course CDPR. And most recently, Eidos Montreal, the team behind Guardians of the Galaxy and Deus Ex. And so the ambition is clearly there, and the talent seems legit. But of course, this wasn't a team that could simply hit the ground running. They had to build the road first, which of course explains the delays, but it doesn't completely excuse them. Not anymore. And I think Paul Tassi from Forbes summed it up perfectly, not quoting him verbatim, but he said something to the effect of, "This isn't about something going wrong, it's just another reminder that Xbox is still struggling to get games out." And that to me is the thread running through all of this. It's not that Fable is doomed, it's that this was supposed to be the turning point. Instead, it feels like another delayed release in a generation of half-delivered promises. Of course, if this very fragile rumour is to be true. But don't get me wrong, I am fully in the camp that this next Fable game looks great to me. Heck, the trailers have so much charm, the absurd British tone is there, and we have flippin' Richard Ayoade as a smug giant and Matt King as a washed up hero. It certainly feels and looks like Fable so far. But what we don't really know, and that alpha gameplay did not tell us, was what's the entire gameplay loop? What systems are in place compared to the previous games? We all would like some semblance of a character creator this time, and how are we doing morality? What's actually currently finished right now? And if this thing doesn't land until 2027, 9 years since development began, Fable can't just be good. Unfortunately, in the current state of Xbox, it has to mean something. It has to restore faith. Not just in Albion, but unfortunately on Xbox's behalf. This, after all, is the Xbox RPG. If the rumours are true, and with Xbox already slipping at the moment, is Fable, unfortunately, slipping alongside it. And that doesn't mean the game is doomed, that doesn't mean it's going to suck. Playground might just be taking the extra time they need wisely to land something that actually hits. And after everything they've had to build from scratch, maybe they deserve that space. I mentioned this last time, but games like Horizon Zero Dawn, the God of War reboot, and Cyberpunk, they all took around 8 years to fully finish and release. Unfortunately though, in this current climate, it's less about Playground, as I said at the start, and it's more about Xbox and what they're doing right now with their current studios. I just hope that Playground is not a victim in that, and ultimately I hope that this game can truly be a win, not for Xbox's sake, but for the developers at Playground. Either way, if this delay happens, if it is indeed true, so far nobody at Playground Games has come out and said anything. Even so, the topic of conversation is all about perception. Xbox's generation has been all build up, all acquisitions, all promise, and so far, not much payoff. And unfortunately, as much as I really hate saying this, we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens with Xbox, with Playground Games, and with Fable. None of this has come from an official source. However, with the current state of Xbox and Playground Games' prolonged development of Fable, it's not an immediate surprise, least to say. Hopefully, if this delay is true, it's come from the demands of the developers who need it to be able to create the very best game they possibly can, and it hasn't come from other ulterior motive. Hopefully Playground can utterly smash this one and have had the right time, the right processes, and the right procedures to be able to create the very best Fable game possible. But either way, until the moment we find out more about Fable, until we find out if this game is indeed been delayed, you are already in the right place for the latest on Fable. We're talking a lot about its lore, what to expect, wish lists, and everything in between. But of course, you are already in the right place for the latest on that. Until then, I have been Jackdaw, and I should go. Whoa, 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 whoa.